the reason I talk about this so much is because it's getting worse. Of all you see like 20 different options here on the first page of Google, and only 4 of them are actual contractors. The rest are just companies trying to wiggle in between professionals and their customers and take a cut. And that pisses me off because it's not that hard to get to the first page of Google for contractors. It's unless you're in a highly competitive area and there's a bunch of other people that have been investing tens of thousands a year into this for 10 years, that might be kind of difficult. But for most contractors, your competition's not that sophisticated. And since you're an actual contractor in your actual city, it will always be easier for you to show up on Google than someone like House, because House is not an actual contractor. But Google thinks that this is the most relevant search because House has spent more money and put more effort into showing up here with content, with SEO, with ads, and that's just how it works. And if I needed more business, we haven't taken appointments in a few months, but if I needed more business, I would double down my efforts on my SEO and get my website showing up on top again. Just a couple weeks ago, it was showing up number 1. Now it's like number 7. And it fluctuates. It goes up and down. But if I was hard up for business, I would start putting more effort into that, get that up here. But since we're number 1 on Google Maps, we don't really have to worry about that so much. Like most of the leads these days for everybody, for all local businesses, come from Google Maps. It's just, Google wants people to use their apps, their products. So that's why it's right here up at the top, and it's not likely to change. And it doesn't cost any money to have a listing. So if you don't have a listing, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. All right, let's see what else he was saying. So yeah, he tried to talk to Thumbtack about the leads not being what he wanted, but didn't get anywhere. He wants to escalate it to the FTC, but he's been too busy. That's another thing is there's so many people reach out to me all the time wanting to sue Home Advisor and Angie's List and all these other companies, and they're looking for a class action lawsuit. And I've seen a few of these lawsuits over the years, but they just these small companies that just spent thousands of dollars on nothing, they don't have the time and resources to go against this giant corporation that is doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And the only reason they're doing so much revenue is because they're on the first page of Google. That's it. 95% of homeowners and people use Google to find what they're looking for. And the only reason these companies exist is because they all have monopolized the front page of Google. It's disgusting. If they added value, I wouldn't have a problem with it, but they don't. They're like leeches, and it sucks. Here's another one. Speaking of Home Advisor, I parted company with those clowns a long time ago, but once a month, someone from Home Advisor gives me a call. They never identify themselves as Home Advisor, but after a while, their failure to give me a straight answer as to who they work for reveals who they work for. Shows they're having problems of some sort. They've been doing this to me for a long time. And they call you and they're like, "Hi, do you do remodels?" And it's like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Do you have capacity to do more remodels?" And at this point, as soon as they ask the first question, "Do you do remodels?" I know who it is, because if somebody found me on Google or my website or Google Maps, they obviously know I do remodels because the number they're calling is right next to the words remodels. So they'll call and they'll ask that, and it's like they're acting like they are a prospective customer, And the last time they called me, they were calling me from the same number they had called me the week before. So I knew who it was before I answered. But I always like to answer because, I make a lot of content about them. I like to keep tabs on what they're doing. And I answer the phone and the same thing. "Hi, do you do remodels?" And I said, "Look, I'm not interested in what you're selling." And this lady was like, "Oh, what do you mean? What am I selling? I'm not selling anything." And I was like, "Okay, cool. How can I help you today?" She's like, "Do you have capacity to do more remodels?" And I'm like, "Look, I know who you are. I'm not interested in buying what you're selling." She's like, "Oh, I'm offended. I'm not selling anything, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Lady, you're calling me from the same number you called me from last week. I know who you are." And the fact that they're resorting to these kind of sales tactics is just another red flag. Obviously they don't add a whole lot of value, or they wouldn't have to try to, trick people into talking to them. And the people that do end up talking to them, they promise them the world. Oh, all you got to do is give us your credit card number and we'll send you all the leads you need and you'll be rich and blah, blah, blah. And what happens more often than not is people spend a few $1,000s and maybe get 1 or 2 projects out of it and then aren't able to make their money back. I mean, that's most people. I get calls every single week from people that have done this, and most of them are telling me they can't quite make a profit on this stuff. And the only companies that are able to make these things work are companies that have a big sales team. They're getting leads from all over the place, and Home Advisor is like one of their channels, and they buy 15 leads a week and they only talk to like 2 of them. Like roughly 1 out of 7 is what my clients tell me they get. They actually, who they talk to from Home Advisor leads, and then maybe like 1 out of 3 of those actually becomes a project. So, what does that mean? They have to buy, I don't know, like 25 or 27 or something like that leads to get a project. It's bonkers. You shouldn't have to do that.